Things just got a whole lot worse for Golden Gophers basketball, and that seat definitely got a lot warmer.
Hey,
You are Locked On Golden Gophers.
No matter what we're going to do here, we're just going to keep rowing.
Your daily podcast on the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
However it turns out, we're just going to keep rowing.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
We're just going to keep rowing, and keep rowing.
You're listening to Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Kane Rob, host of the podcast, former collegiate football video coordinator and recruiting assistant, here to talk Golden Gophers with you each and every day of the week. Now, once again, we're finishing out the entire month of February with a show every day. So Saturday, Sunday, you got it. Be sure to hit subscribe, stay tuned, and keep up with the latest and greatest when it comes to Golden Gophers. Now, today we're talking about basketball, and it is a rough go for Minnesota. You know, Minnesota is on an 11-game losing streak, and they have one Big Ten conference win. And now former 5-star and top 30 recruit Dennis Evans has requested to be released from his letter of intent. For Gophers basketball fans, I'm being 100% real with you right now. It can't get much worse. This is an absolutely devastating blow to the Gophers group right now, who isn't finding success on the court. The only positives that we were seeing is the hope with the freshmen, the hope with the recruiting class coming in, and now that's taking a tumble as well. And there's really no knowing what can happen moving forward. Will players want to hit the portal? Will players be guaranteed to come back? Is Cam Christie going to stay committed? There's just so many questions to be asked, and they're the questions that you don't want to hear when the Gophers are in such a rut right now overall. So you're talking about a team that is 1-15 in the Big Ten, and that on itself is just a travesty right now. And then the fact that the Gophers are a net 237 rating when it comes to NCAA net rankings, and 237th in the country of 300 some schools. That is the worst from a Big Ten school in over 2 decades. It is rough. It is, to be 100% frank and keeping it a buck with you, saying it is very bad would be putting it nicely. Now, I love the Gophers and I want to see the success from the team, but there is just so much going wrong right now that it's hard to find the positive. It's hard to find a glimmer of hope in that darkness that is the Gophers men's basketball season right now. And to cap it all off, the Gophers basketball program's highest ranked recruit in 20 years likely isn't coming to Minnesota anymore. That just takes the cake. It kicks you when you're down, and it brings up a lot of questions if we're being 100% honest with ourselves. Now, this isn't just a decommitment, which we've seen in college sports every year on the year. Decommitments are normal. A kid will commit, and then they'll be like, nah, actually, I'm going to decommit and keep being recruited. And even when you're committed, you can still be recruited by other coaches. We've seen that happen to our players, and we've seen coaches like PJ Fleck continue to do that with guys like Kendrick Lanier, even in this last class. So being committed is one thing, but Dennis Evans signed a national letter of intent in November saying he was intending to come to the University of Minnesota, which is basically the next step up from a commitment. It's putting the pen to paper and saying, this is my squad. And so now he is asking to be released and requesting to be released from that national letter of intent and the commitment that he had so he can be officially recruited again. It is rare for that to happen. Now, typically you'll see, like I said, decommitments, but the release from the national letter of intent usually doesn't happen too often. And when it does, it's typically because of a major coaching change. I think of McKinley Wright from Champlain Park High School, who was committed to Dayton. And then when Dayton's coach ended up going to Indiana, he requested a letter to be released from his NLI. So something like that, something of the sort like that, that is typically the only time you see this type of occasion. And now we're seeing it. There hasn't been any word of Coach Ben Johnson being gone. So what could cause that? Is it the losing? Is it hearing from a teammate on the team and maybe everything isn't as golden as they thought? Now, according to different sources out there and even listening and reading in from my guy Marcus over at the Star Tribune, it sounds like the losing isn't there. It's being stated that the losing isn't the reason why. Now, I'm going to take that for a grain of salt. I mean, I think anybody would say that, whether you were being nice or just trying to make yourself look better, like you're going to say, oh, it's not because the team's losing. It definitely has to play a role in it all. But the family says that it just doesn't look like it would be the right fit with the style of basketball they're playing right now. I get it, but let's keep it a buck. Let's be 100% real. Being 1-15 in the conference, having 7 wins on the season, and looking like you don't want to be on the court, and the effort not being there every night on a daily basis, I don't know if I would be inspired to want to come either. And then on top of that, you have the negativity of fans in social media, very, very, very present. You add all that up, and it can weigh on a kid. And again, these are kids. So I'm not surprised with how it has been going, but I am extremely disappointed, because this impact is major for a school like Minnesota. And for Evans, who is averaging a double-double at the high school level in his senior year right now, on top of 6 blocks a game. I've done multiple shows on Dennis Evans here at Locked On Golden Gophers and told you he legitimately has the chance to be a player we haven't seen here in Minnesota in quite some time that could average double-digit points and over 4 blocks a game, and even possibly double-digit rebounds. We've seen like 1 or 2 of those in the last 24 years, 1 or 2 of those players in the Gophers' history. And he definitely had the build, had the talent, had the trajectory to do something like that. So this is a gut punch to Gophers fans alike. Now, not only that, but he could have been a game-changing presence. He could have been a big piece for Minnesota in the immediate future too, because yes, we need the freshmen to grow. We need the freshmen to come along at their own speed, and we're seeing that firsthand with the Gophers this season and the strides that some of these players are making. But I wasn't expecting Dennis Evans to come out of the gates and be a double-digit scorer and a double-digit rebounder, but I was expecting him to be an interior defender and a presence inside that could change the defensive level for the Gophers from the jump, from the get-go, and give teams problems. And that's off the table. And how do you replace that void? How do you fill that void? How do you move forward? It's tough, and there's no straight answer for that. And what we've seen from the team this year, having one more player coming in Cam Christie, who is a baller. I love Cam Christie's game, and I still am very, very excited for Cam Christie to head this way. And adding a redshirt freshman in Caden Betts to get some looks, both can do great things for the Gophers, but to expect them to be program changing, to get this team out of the cellar for the Big Ten, to get this team out of the depths that they've been in for the last 2 seasons, to expect that from just that alone coming in, I'm sorry, but it's unrealistic, and it's most likely not happening. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. It's the midway point of NBA season, and it's here right now. So download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's America's #1 sportsbook, and you can get a no-sweat first bet for up to $1,000 in bonus bets, and that's only if your first bet doesn't win. So either way, you are a winner in my book and in FanDuel's book. Definitely go over, check out the spreads, check out the money lines, the totals. You can also bet on player props, including points, rebounds, assists, you name it. Plus, FanDuel lets you combine your bets for an even bigger chance at winning a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon. There's no way that you should pass up on this opportunity. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. So the thought of Payne and Evans inside in the paint, interior defense together, that was a Gophers fan's dream, and now it is a nightmare for Minnesota, knowing that Dennis Evans is not heading this way. Now, the coaching on the floor has definitely left much to be desired this season, but That could be stated from record alone. It could also be stated from even the effort and the absolute cold streaks on the scoring front. But defensively, there have been flashes. Moments from the freshmen, there have been flashes. But then now you're diving into recruiting, which is the strength that we've been told with Ben Johnson and the strength that we've seen so far with Coach Ben Johnson. And now that might be crumbling. Now that might be changing. Now that might not be 100% true due to the results we're seeing on the floor. It's tough. It's tough out there. And I've been preaching for a long time, along with many others out there, that there are positives and there is hope stemmed from the high quality of recruiting. But that could all change in one quick move, in one release of the national letter of intent. Now, no matter how great of a human being Coach Ben Johnson is, no matter how great of a recruiter he is with the relationships he's been building and whatnot, and I do truly like him. I like him as a person. I like the character that he brings. I like how personable he can be. But if it doesn't come together on the floor, and now the recruiting prowess, the top guys that we were so excited to see, now that rug is being pulled out from underneath us as well, it would be ridiculous to not think that seat is on fire right now. A team that's 1-15 in the conference, a team that's won only 7 games, a team that is coming along with young players. Yes, I'm with you. I've been preaching that all the time. Patience, but to see the lack of effort at times, to see no wins in the last 11 games, and not even knowing if there's a chance at wins in these final few games, if we can't start to see any sort of tremendous progress to close out this year, I would absolutely not be surprised to see a change being called for. You see, in order to keep the screaming, the calling for change, the calling for jobs, in order to keep that away, in order to keep it fended off, you have to have something positive going for you. You have to be winning. You have to be in tight ones. It has to be, if injuries are the reason, if injuries are the plague that you're saying that's the reason we're not good enough, you have to still be down to the wire in majority of your games. You can't be losing by 20 plus games or 20 plus points. You can't be losing bad. You can't be in close games with no high major team, with non-high major teams. And like we saw in the non-conference this year, there's been too many things that have gone wrong. And the hope that Gophers fans were clinging to, the hope, the positiveness that was hanging and holding this thing together was the recruiting class. And it looks like that's changing. Now, is that right? Does that mean that he had his fair shake as a coach here in Minnesota? No, that doesn't mean he got a fair shake. That doesn't mean he wasn't dealt a bad hand. But the truth is that the Gophers, if they don't close out this year strong and they don't close out on a whole nother trajectory upwards, then we absolutely could be bound for change. That change could be positive in the long scheme for the Gophers, but could it be much worse? That's the real question here. If you have the change, how worse could it get? And it's hard to think it could get worse, having been the lowest team in the Big Ten for back-to-back years. And the future not being certain when your highest recruit says, I'm out. And we haven't even found out what's to happen with the crazy transfer portal in the basketball world, in the college sports world right now. So it can still get worse. It can. And that is a scary thought for Gophers fans. So overall, those calling for change, I don't blame you. I don't know if I'm fully there yet, but I'm definitely asking a lot of questions. Now, the truth is, you have to know what that change entails if it is called for. If we are to make the change, if it's time, the jig is up. We've been at the bottom for 2 straight years now. We're losing our highest recruits, and it doesn't seem like there's a positive swing for us going. Now could be the time to make that change, but you have to know, again, what that means. And what that means is your star players are not guaranteed to be back. Jamison Battle, Dawson Garcia, guys that it looks like they would return. It looks like they would be back to put it together, get a better shake, get past the injury bugs. Guys like Parker Fox, guys like Isaiah Enan coming back, Payne stepping into himself, Joshua Joseph making better usage of himself, Jaden Henley, who is Dennis Evans' best friend, who looked like they were going to be bound to play together. None of that is certain anymore. So if you make that jump, you make that change, and you're like, we have to go in a different direction, you could lose everything again. Every blip and flash you've seen from these freshmen could head towards the transfer portal. The star players that have come in from the transfer portal and have shown some of the only progress, the only light of the team, could be bound to another team, because why would they want to stick around for a rebuild in their final years of eligibility? It's plain and simple. If you call for the change at the coaching, just be ready for a whole shakeup, a whole rebuild once again. And that's something that another down year could very well be in the Gophers' future moving forward if that change is to happen. Now, Gophers basketball is in a very, very, very tough spot right now, and there are question marks all over and many questions yet to come. But the timing couldn't be worse for Minnesota either, with the men's basketball tournament for the Big Ten set to be held in Minneapolis in 2024. And you would hope that you could give that hometown advantage to the Gophers basketball team moving forward and help them maybe spur a tournament run that people wouldn't see coming. But that definitely is mucked up. That definitely is muddied. That definitely is something that is a moot point at this point, with the Gophers seeming to have questions in every aspect of college basketball programming. Recruiting now has questions. The win-loss column has major questions. The talent on the team and the system that we run has questions being asked. Is it the perfect time to make a change? I don't know. I'm starting to think more and more that regardless of how much patience you can preach, if you don't see any types of growth or major upside, how do you stick with it? Now, the major upside that was holding this thing together was the recruiting, was the top 40 class. I believe they were 37th ranked in the 247 recruiting rankings. One of the higher classes, and again, Dennis Evans was the highest rated recruit committed and signed to the team in 20 years. And that's gone in a day, in a night, in a moment's notice. With that positive, that huge thing that was holding this ship together, the tide could be changing, and it could be coming, and it is something to keep an eye on. That is definitely something we will continue to look at, continue to jump in towards as we close out this basketball season, with many questions on the surface that we will continue to try to answer here at Locked On Golden Gophers. This is Kane Rob. It's been a tough time to be a Gopher fan for basketball, but we're going to close out the season regardless, and hopefully it is on an upward trajectory. Will a coaching change come? That is the question that we will continue to look at and address as we move forward towards the offseason. This is Locked On Golden Gophers. Kane Rob signing off. I'll see you tomorrow. Row the boat. Sky Ma. Go Gophers. See you next time.